Hey everybody, here I am, final stage of this job, final stage of repairing this air intake. So I'm going to put all three parts back together using a technique called plug welding, which I'll show you in the video, and then once that's reassembled, paint it, finish it, and then perhaps show it being reassembled to the bumper, so back in its original form with the other intake all fixed to the bumper. I can let you have a peek at the finished item. It's here. So here's the intake that I've finished. Really very happy with it. Good and solid. It's got the repaired top cover. It's got the new inner skin, which you probably won't recognise now. But watch the video, you can see how I did that and how I got to where I am. Here's a reminder of where I started. I stripped the rusty air intake into three separate pieces and found far more rust than I ever expected. In my first video on this, I made a new metal skin to replace these rusty remains. Then in the second, repaired the top cover. Now I'm going to clean up all three parts, paint them and weld them together. I'm starting with the bottom skin. And first I'm testing that with the new middle skin I made. Here I'm cleaning up the bottom piece with a small brush on the Dremel. Then checking the fit of the top cover on the middle skin. Unfortunately, the fit isn't quite correct here on the left, where the top cover sits a bit high. I'll need to fix that before I go any further. I found one problem here. There's a high spot on the middle skin I made. Rather than just belting it with a hammer, I've cut a slot across the high bit with a Dremel so I can bend it in more carefully. And then there's another high spot here where I've done the same. Now, with the top cover clamped to the middle skin, it fits okay where before there was a gap. To finish this job, I've welded the slots up and then ground them flat like this with the grinder. Back on the bottom skin, and I'm starting work to plug weld the parts together. I'll need this edge to be complete, so first I need to close off these four holes with this repair plate. Before I do that, I painted the area with a weld-through primer that conducts electricity. This protects the metal but ensures it can still be welded. Here's the metal plate welded in place and with the welds ground down. And here's a view of that repair from above with the repair plate inside this edge. Looks fine to me. I need to add a couple holes to the middle skin for fixings, just here. I've mounted the middle skin to the bumper so I can place the fixings accurately. And here's that job done. One of the holes needs a 5mm thread. I'll use one of these welding inserts for that, mounting it behind this hole. I started by cleaning off the paint and flattening the weld with the Dremel. And we'll use a bolt to hold the insert in place while I weld it. Here it's ready for welding. I used these on another job and checked some different welder settings on this test piece to get the weld I liked. This was best for me on power setting 1 max and wire speed at 5. Always remember to run a test piece if you're not sure about what welder setting to use. In this case, I keep the test piece with the insert so I always know what my preference was. Now I'm going to prepare the middle skin for plug welding. I've measured up the height of the bottom skin and marked where that will fit behind the middle skin. The top line shows where the top edge of the bottom skin will be. I've then marked a line in the centre of that gap. The plug welds will run along this line. And marked the spacing on the side of the middle skin. I picked about 30 to 40mm. These will be the positions for my plug welds. To make the plug welds, I'll drill holes of about 5mm at each of these locations. Then, when the two parts are joined together, weld through each of the holes. Once the air intake's assembled, I won't be able to paint the inside, so I've masked and painted the inside before I join the sections together. The remaining original parts of the top skin are strong metal but showing surface rust in places. Before I go any further, I'll coat those areas with a rust converting product containing phosphoric acid. This is the pink liquid in the jug. If you ever use any of this stuff, make sure you have good protection for your skin and face. While I'm waiting for that, I've finished painting the inside of the middle skin and bottom skin, and I've masked these areas where I'll plug weld the skins together. The silver colour is weld through primer, as I'll weld to that. Also this strip, which is the edge where the plug welds will be. This sequence shows me setting up the bottom and middle skins on the bumper ready to join them together. By fixing them in their working position, I can be sure to get the best alignment. Here I've tack welded the ends to hold the two skins in this position, and a plug welded on the underside just here. Back on the bench with these fixed together, I'll now plug weld along this line in these positions. To plug weld, I'll clamp next to each hole so there's no gap, then weld inside the hole with a kind of circular motion to fill the hole with weld. And here from the underside. Then grind all those welds flat with a grinder. Here's the new intake on the right compared to the original on the left. Yep, I'm doing okay so far. With that done, I've masked up to protect the new paint inside and given the outside a blaster weld through primer. Now I'm going to prepare the top cover. We'll plug weld this to finish the job. I've marked up the locations to drill holes for the plug welds. First drilled out the two fixing holes, and then holes for plug welds right round the edge of the top cover. Not a good feeling putting all these holes in your new work, but it's got to be done. Before the top cover gets assembled, I painted the inside with weld through primer. And now clamp the top cover in position over the two parts already joined. Here I'm working round plug welding the top cover in place. And with that done, grinding the welds flat. With the three skins finally joined together, it's time to make this job look a bit smarter, and here I'm in the middle of filling and rubbing down the outer surface to smooth it a bit. Then a coat of primer, and then more rubbing down and filling. Yeah, I'm really not good at this job. Then time to fix this bracket in place. I've marked up the plug weld positions and got it ready to put together. There's a few different paint finishes going on. Most of the top cover's still in grey primer waiting for top coat. Then there's weld through primer where the bracket will be plug welded. These areas will be inaccessible once the bracket's fixed together, so I've painted them in the final brown finish. The brown colour isn't supposed to match my car. These parts were originally a satin brown colour on any colour of this particular car. Should perhaps be a bit blacker, but I'm pretty happy with this. And a bit of a tip on finding unusual paint colours like a choice of satin browns. Go online and search for Pantone aerosol paint. There's a huge range of Pantone colours and you can get them mixed in matte, satin or gloss finishes. You may need to try a few different ones to get the right shade because they never look quite the same on screen, but I normally order a few for trials, then use any spares for first coats and overpaint them with my final colour. Here's the bracket welded in place and those welds ground down. Then a coat of primer and brown top coat to finish. And finally, here's my finished air intake. And here's shown with the original intake from the other side, which I've also cleaned up and painted. Before I fit it to the car, I'll spray in some rust-proofing oil to hold back any future rust in, but for me this is now done. So at last, it's the final chapter in the repair of my air intake. Way more complicated than I ever expected it would be. I spent so much time on this, and all I would say is I'm very pleased with the result. I've still got much of the original air intake there, well, the bottom skin anyway. It looks good. Perhaps I should mark myself out of 10 on that. I think I get 9 for the repair, probably about 5 for the paintwork. I think paintwork really isn't my skill, but it's barely visible, so that's pretty good. You may well think I was crazy to spend so much time repairing this. I don't know, probably just over a week, something like that, just to repair a small air intake. It's a great feeling of satisfaction if you can do it. And if you're faced with a job like this, then I would give it a try. Maybe try some of the techniques I've shown in these videos to get the job done and see how you go. And finally, of course, I'll show you the two intakes. So I have them both here. So this side is the original one, which I've just painted, and this one is the repaired one. Now if you remember, just to run back through that again, That's the top cover was repaired. It's complete new inner skin and the original lower skin. They've all been joined back together by plug welding, and then I've just painted them. And what I'll do is I'll run a short video sequence, a separate video, and I'll show how these will assemble back on to the front bumper and how they look in the car. If you like watching this kind of restoration work and you'd like to see more of it, then keep an eye on my channel. Ask Stuart.